Hey friends, welcome to The Writer's Journey. I'm your host, Lauren Moore, and with me is Kayleen, the Golden Voice Williams, and Ellen, the Queen of the Fates Campbell. We're three editors on a journey to learn more with you, the audience, and thank you for joining us. Today we're talking about ProWritingAid, a tool authors, editors, and companies use to make their grammar flawless. Our guest tonight is from ProWritingAid. She's here to tell us what they're all about and how to use the program. Hayley Milliman, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I am really excited to have you on. I've been looking forward to this for weeks now because I have ProWritingAid, but I don't really know how to use it. You guys have so many features. I was kind of hoping you could walk us through them and show us how to use it. And I know a lot of people in the audience are excited. So ladies and everyone in the audience, welcome to tonight's show. And thank you, Hayley, for joining us.
Yeah, I can't wait to get into it.
So Hayley, could you tell us a little about yourself and how you joined the ProWritingAid team?
Yeah, so I joined the team back in 2018, and before that, I was actually a classroom teacher. So I was an elementary school teacher for 3 years, and then I did a little bit of work in educational technology and was really writing kind of curriculum for some ed tech tools, and then doing a little bit of just freelance blogging, and then happened upon ProWritingAid, just a job description for ProWritingAid, and then decided to apply because I was really excited about what they're doing and what we're doing now for really educating writers in addition to providing a really great grammar and style checker. So applied, was hired in 2018 and have been working there ever since, which is amazing. It's been about 2 years. Actually, it's probably, April. It's 2 years right now.
Well, happy anniversary.
Thank you. Yes.
I'm really excited that the quarantine kind of pushed us into this. I saw that you guys were going to go to London Book Fair, and then we got an email a week before saying, "I'm sorry, world, we're not going to be able to make it."
That was 2 days before.
Yeah, was it? Yeah, Well, I read that email, and I was thinking, wait, ProWritingAid, they want to talk to authors? Well, we've got authors at Keystroke Medium. Let's introduce ProWritingAid to Keystroke Medium, and they sent us you, and now you're here tonight. So I'm excited this all kind of coming together.
Yeah, it's definitely been, as you know, for everyone, a very interesting time, but it's actually been really great. We've been able to pivot from London Book Fair, where we were going to go and connect with authors and all of that, to really connecting with authors online, both here, obviously on your podcast and your show. And then we're also doing a lot of free writing trainings. And so we've been connecting with authors in a lot of different ways, which are it's really fun. And it's keeping me sane as I'm stuck in my house for days on end.
What does the life of a quarantined ProWritingAid team member look like?
Well, honestly, it does not look too different than normal life, which is, I guess, a blessing and a curse. So we're a fully remote team. So we have team members all over the world. We have some in the UK, we have some in Spain, some in Italy, some in Russia. I'm in the US. We have a few other US colleagues as well. So we're all kind of remote, and we are working remotely in normal times as well. So we're really fortunate in a lot of ways that, COVID-19 hasn't had a big impact on our day-to-day beyond, I was supposed to go to London for the London Book Fair, so that's too bad. But other than that kind of travel, we really work remotely. So it's been pretty much business as usual, except for, again, we're trying to kind of support our community. So adding in these extra events and trainings and free resources for people to use as we're all stuck at home.
What are some of those resources that authors can use?
Yeah, so we are basically, when all of this happened and when we kind of had to cancel London Book Fair and all of that, we were like, okay, well, what do we want right now, and how can we help, just talk to people? And so what we decided was to basically reach out to as many people in our community to do as many free trainings as we can. So we've been doing about 2 or 3 a week with, writers and editors and book marketers, just really free webinars that people can join every week. And then we're also doing write-ins. So we started doing write-ins with our community as well. We just did one working on building attention. Our next one coming up is on character building. And so these are just kind of 1 hour times that people can pop into and, write along with prompts with us. Wow. It's been really fun. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Not just an editing thing. Nice.
Yes.
Where can we find these?
Oh, let me see if I can grab a link.
The webinars and the write-ins.
So we have a blog post with all of them that we keep updated. Am I able to drop it in the chat, or what's the best way that I can share that with you guys?
Maybe message it to me on Facebook, and then I can put it in the chat.
Okay. I also just dropped it in our private chat. I don't know if you can then show it to the live people.
Yes.
But yeah, so we keep that updated. We just had 2 today. I think we have 3 next week. Upcoming next week, we have a bunch of stuff on editing with actually the people we were going to be at the London Book Fair with. So they'll be doing webinars that week. And then the week after that, we have a training with a business writing professor at USC about how to write a cover letter. We're doing the write-in on character building that week. So we really have offerings for kind of everyone, fiction writers, business writers, all types of things. And they're all free and great times to pop on, which has been really nice.
All right, we have a question from the chat. Stephanie Zerby asks, we've heard about the right-ins, but what about the left-ins?
None of those yet. Yeah, none of those yet. So I guess we're discriminating. It's only for righties, but we'll accept lefties at ours too.
So the write-ins and the webinars we can find at ProWritingAid.com.
Yes, exactly.
Awesome.
Some of you mediums may remember that Walt and I evaluated all the grammar and editing programs last year, and ProWritingAid was the clear winner on every front for that. So
yeah, definitely
if you're skeptical, you can put it away, because this is the real deal.
What was that episode name called, in case anyone's curious and wants to see the comparison?
It was 5 episodes: the good, the bad, and the overpriced.
And then what were you evaluating them on, the different programs?
On their features, how well their features actually did what they were supposed to do, whether you liked what they were doing or not. Were they actually doing it? How much they cost, and how easy they were to use, especially like for somebody like me who walks in and says, "Okay, what do I do?" Start pushing buttons, that kind of. And ProWritingAid beat everybody, including Grammarly. So much better than Grammarly.
Ooh, great to hear.
Yes.
Glad to hear you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So where I use ProWritingAid in my editing is right at the end of the editing process. I've already gone through the manuscript twice, and the author's gone through it too. And then right before I send it back for the last time, I hit grammar and spelling, and then I run through all the suggestions, and I kind of check each one and use it. But I can see at the top of the word that there's a whole lot more going on. What are some other features that ProWritingAid has that kind of set you apart from Grammarly and Perfected?
Yeah, so I think so a lot of the other kind of people in this, or apps and tools in the space, are really focused on, grammar and style in terms of, missing commas, misspelled words, all of that type of stuff. And so we do all of that, and we do it very well. But we also have basically the largest number of reports that anyone has. So I think Grammarly has like 6, we have 20. And so those reports cover, again, the basics of, writing style and grammar, but they also go into a ton of other different things. So we were kind of chatting before this started. One of my things that I do a lot when I'm writing is I get like a word or phrase stuck in my head. So I'll be like luminous, and all of a sudden I'll have used luminous like 50 times on a page. So we have a repeats check that looks for repeats and echoes in your phrasing. So you can see, oh, okay, I've used luminous like way too many times. I need to change that up. So that's one that I personally use all the time. We also have reports on overused words. So these are it's a little bit different than repeats, but these are words that are really common in the English language, like intensifiers, like very, things that are kind of weak words that people use instead of stronger language. So we identify instances of that in your writing so that you can, switch out something like he was very mad to he was furious or something, just to make your writing stronger and, more vivid and that type of thing. We also have a bunch of really cool visual reports on structure and sentence length. So you can kind of get these graphs delivered of your writing. So you can see, oh, okay, like in this section, I have a bunch of really short sentences. In this section, I have a bunch of really long sentences. So you can kind of see how your pacing is going and, in some cases, it might make sense if you're doing an action scene to have a lot of short sentences, but it really just gives you this kind of visual idea of, am I introducing enough variety here to really make it engaging for my reader? Then we also have a whole suite of readability reports that do, your typical reading level and that type of thing, with like Fletch Kincaid and all of those kind of readability scores. But then we also have reports that do, for instance, find our sticky sentences report finds glue words. So again, those are words that are kind of just like stuck in your sentence that don't really add anything to it. So again, it's kind of getting at that idea that sometimes sentences are way longer and more meaty than they need to be, and the real point is hidden because of that. So I use the sticky sentences report all the time because I'm always too verbose. So it helps me kind of cut down, make it clearer, and that type of thing. We also have a diction report that does very similar work. It finds, instances of jargon or phrases where you're saying something like, he was in close proximity to the fridge instead of just like he was near the fridge. Just finding those things that are not grammatically incorrect, but they are kind of signs of weak writing, and also can just be adjusted to make your work stronger, easier to read, and to get those kind of clear messages across.
Now, Hayley, as an author, when would you use a program like this? Like when in your writing process, or how would you use a program like this?
For me, it would be, I've done my rounds of editing. Before I send it off to the editor would probably be when I would drop it into, the ProWritingAid, just to, give it that last, scrub, for things that I can no longer see because I've read it so many times. It's almost like that fresh set of eyes that can be, hard for a lot of people to find, especially if you can go into it knowing I might need to change some things, and, you allow yourself to do that, can be wildly helpful.
Now, is this a program that could replace a human editor?
Oh, no.
No. And we don't ever make a claim that we want to work in conjunction with you as the writer and then whatever human editor you're using as well. Just kind of like Kayleen was saying, this is helping find what like a line edit would do, these instances of missing punctuation, but it's never gonna, a software is never going to tell you if your, character arc is strong, or if your plotting makes sense, or where there's holes in your plot and that type of thing. So we like to say that this is a way that you can submit a clean manuscript to your editor. So that way they're not bogged down by saying, oh, Hayley, you used luminous 30 times on this page. Like that's already taken care of. Exactly. So you can be like, okay, well, why they're glowing doesn't make sense. So let's tackle that rather than the fact that I'm distracted that you've reused this so many times.
Yeah, that's actually my biggest pet peeve in the whole world. I curate a list that I slap on everybody's work when I start. It's like, okay, you used look 432 times.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, mine was my biggest one. And anytime I catch myself starting to use it, I get like a sick feeling in my stomach. I'm like, Ellen's gonna kill me. Because like my characters would gaze. They would gaze this way and they would gaze that way. They're gazing everywhere.
We had a question from chat. T.S. Hoddle asked, how does it handle
speculative
specific?
fiction?
Where
Specific.
name, that's what I was wondering. Is it speculative or specific? Where names, words, and even capitalization rules are often made up.
Yeah, great question. So we have what's called the house style report. So first of all, you can always add words to your dictionary, words and names to your dictionary, and then you have kind of a custom dictionary for that type of stuff. But we also have this house style report, which sets up basically specific rules that you want. So people can say, so adding to the dictionary is one instance. We also have, say you're like a business client. So you're saying, you're writing about like a fall fashion line or something like that. And you always want to say autumn fashion line instead of all fall fashion line, or, any kind of those instances where you want to replace a specific phrase with another one. Our house style report lets you do that. So you can kind of put in these specific phrases that you want it to find and replace with something else. And then we also actually have that capability for teams. So our business clients are able to create style guides that they can, share with all the users on their team that have those same capabilities.
Wait, a team of people can all How does that work? You got to tell
Yeah.
us that.
So basically you'll have kind of like a team master user who will input the style guide. And so again, some of those can be as simple as subbing in fall fashion guide for autumn fashion guide. Some of it might be more complicated. So, if you're a college professor or something like that, or you're working at like, we've worked with like the University of Chicago. So, they're always saying like Chicago University or something like that. It's kind of like a really intense find and replace where you're able to find these mistakes and these errors and then fix them. Similarly, it works with jargon. So, if you're like, I don't know, if you were like an ads agency or something, and there was some way that people were kind of always referring to something on your report and you wanted it to be clearer, or they were using something, I'm trying to think, of course, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but, if they're using like jargon in there that really doesn't make sense, you can kind of find that jargon and replace it with clearer words, or you can give a clear message that's like, stop using jargon. So our Teams feature basically lets people create their own style guides in there so they can outline all of the specific things that they want, which would be in, a style guide that you get, as a writer at one of these places. And it's just built into the software. So that way people can do it automatically rather than having to go back through and be like, okay, did I say fall fashion line? Like, let me find it and replace it. So it does it in real time as you're writing.
So would there be a way for me to team up with my client?
Like
maybe I have a style guide of species names, race names, equipment, weapons, whatever we've created in our world. Is there a way that I could connect with my client if they have ProWritingAid too and make them match?
Yeah, so you would have to kind of create your own like business. Like we have that capability as like an enterprise solution. So you'd have to basically if I were you, I would like create my own team and then like add all of my clients to it. That might be one way to do it. Another way, if you wanted to do it a little bit more simply, because again, these are typically the teams are typically like larger teams, like 10 to 15 people plus, would just be to sync up on your house style report. So say like, hey, add into this specific phrase, because everybody has access to the house style if they're just an individual account.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, in a little bit, we're going to have Hayley show us ProWritingAid in action. But first, we're going to do a little spotlight read.
All right. This week's spotlight is on No Safe Words, LLC. You've written your manuscript, but is it ready for readers? With over 6 million ebooks on Amazon, how do you make yours stand out from the pack? You start with a great editor. Enter No Safe Words. Professionals with experience in traditional and indie publishing, we offer the services you need. From plot consultations to manuscript editing and blurb writing, we're here for your book. Our team has the experience, dedication, and imagination it takes to get you from idea to book launch. Yay! And by the way, that's us, Lori Moore, Ellen Campbell, the pointing, and me, Kaylee. Oh, and we added a team
Jessica
member.
West.
Jessica West.
Jessica West.
And thanks to Guy Anthony DeMarco, we've got a little present for our listeners, and that is...
Oh, you're the next little bit down? Okay. And special present, there is a special ProWritingAid link for our fans for a half-off sale. That's $120 for a lifetime subscription to ProWritingAid, and Lauren will drop you that link.
Yay!
Which I probably need to pick up because I mean you can't beat a lifetime half off deal. I mean you really can't.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So before people decide whether or not they're going to get ProWritingAid, they probably want to take a look at it and see what's going on and see if it's the right thing for them or kind of what's out there. So Hayley has a writing sample and she's going to show us what it looks like and then kind of walk us through how to use it.
Share my screen. All right, can you guys see this? No?
Yes,
Oh, yeah, you can. All right. Okay, so this is the back end of ProWritingAid. So when you come in here, you can begin typing. You can copy and paste something that you have. You can upload a document, but I'm actually going to view a sample. So we also have sample text in here that if you're playing around, you can come in and get one. So it just pulls in some sample text. Okay. So as you can see, there's lots of things starting to happen. We have some underlines, we have some reports going on. So up here on the ProWritingAid toolbar, these are basically all of the different reports we have. I'll kind of go through them one section at a time. Here are our core reports. These are kind of the main reports that you'll be using to, again, find grammar issues, style issues, which I'll talk about in a second, those overused words that we're talking about a little bit before, as well as our real-time report. So our real-time report checks things in real time. So that's kind of these writing and style issues that you'll see here. Then moving across the toolboard, our repeats check, look for those repeats and echoes like I was talking about with Luminous. Structure is this really cool visualization, which we'll go to in a second. And then readability and all of these other reports down here within readability are all of these things that really just clear up your writing and make it easier and more effective for your reader. Okay, so let's look at the real-time report. So again, the real-time report works in real time. If you click into, so you can see kind of it color codes based on, what the report you're running on is. Sometimes people are always like, what does the blue mean? And it's always just like, it means what it means. It means what it means for the report you're in. It's not something all the time. So 15 grammar issues found. Basically, when I come in, I can click into the grammar issues and then I can see them pop up in context. So here's where I think some of the best things about ProWritingAid happen. And a lot of actually my work individually happens as well. So when you come to an error, you can always see what the error is, and then it offers you a suggestion for it. Now, you do not have to take that suggestion. So before we were having a conversation about, can ProWritingAid replace a human editor? No. And it also can't replace a human writer. You're never going to get into ProWritingAid and find that it's changed your whole document. You will always have the agency to either accept a change or not accept a change. So you can accept a change here. You can choose to ignore it and move on to the next one. If you have a rule that you're just like, I don't care about passive voice right now, I don't ever want it to tell me about that, you can disable that. And you can always turn them back on as well. But those are kind of your options here. But what I also love about ProWritingAid is that it offers you more information, right? So our goal is not just to find and fix your errors, but it's to tell you, why they're wrong. And so that if you want to, you can learn more about them. So when you have this little orange eye up here in the top, it comes into an article that I might have written or someone else on the team about the mistake. There will be a short one here, and then if you click read full article, it will go to our blog. We're also
so it's like teaching you why something's wrong or why something's right, not just telling you that it is.
Exactly, and then
it's offering to teach you. It's not forcing you to learn.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to learn. It's just if you want to.
Whether the program got the call right or not, because you have the information right there to make that call.
Exactly. And that's another great point, is that this is a software and we are trying to better it every single day. But at the end of the day, it is a computer program. So sometimes it will make mistakes. And that means that you always have the chance to say, oh, you know what? It made a mistake. I'm just going to ignore it for this time. So it happens rarely, but it does happen because, again, it's a computer and it's imperfect. So if that happens, you can always ignore it. And this context helps you decide, should I make that change or should I not? This also is a great feature that we have. We're also adding little videos in. So if you're just like sick of reading, we're working on adding videos to all of these articles as well. So you can click and watch a cute little in-tool video too for these as we're adding them in. So that's basically like how the real-time checker works. Now, the rest of the core reports, so the real-time checks grammar, style, spelling, all of that as you're going. You can always turn it off if you're working on a longer document and don't want to know until the end. You can turn it off and then come back to the reports later. I typically start with a summary report, which, as it sounds, is a summary of the whole your whole document. It gives you kind of an overall look at a bunch of key areas. So it gives you an overall score. It gives you a score for grammar, spelling, style. It gives you key actions. So right here in this sample, they're using a lot of glue words, which I talked about with the sticky sentences. So, we can scroll down to that to see a little bit more. You get some key document statistics about your word count, your unique vocabulary, which is great. So you can see, okay, have I used any cool, unusual words? Or again, what am I using a lot of here? We also then have these readability measures. So we use a number of different readability scales, and then we give you some information about why that matters and kind of what you should be looking for. We also break you down by paragraph, so you can see some visualizations here. Overused words. So again, the overused words are not words that you're repeating often, but they're overused compared to published books. So a lot of adverbs are often in that. Again, intensifiers like very, that type of thing. Sentence structure. So here you can kind of see your sentence lengths through, which is always cool to see. Again, this is pretty varied, which is great. Passive voice, all this. So basically, again, the summary is a huge kind of look at what your overall, document scores are. And then you can really dig into the nitty gritty within each of those. So that's the summary report. I'll take you guys through, well, let me see first. Were there any questions about that one? I don't think so.
Yeah, can you go back to, you kind of passed over and
which one?
Towards the bottom where it suggests that, right there, back.
This one?
The sticky.
Yes. Yep. So sticky sentences, this is one of my passion areas because I actually hadn't heard about it before I started working with ProWritingAid, and our founder, Chris, is really, really passionate about this. So sticky sentences contain a high percentage of glue words. Glue words are basically the 200 or so most common words in the English language, except for personal pronouns. They're kind of like empty space. Let me see if I can go to yeah.
What I wanted to ask was, where did you come up with the numbers? I'm not disputing any of your numbers. I'm just asking, what was the formula you used to get?
So I don't know the specific formula, but our natural language processing team is constantly analyzing text. So they're analyzing published text and just running tons of counts on these all the time. So yeah, they would be able to answer what the specific formula is. Okay. But again, it's just kind of scraping published text to see what's in there.
Gotcha.
So here's some examples of them. And basically, like, if we look at a sentence here, the the sticky sentence looks at our glue index. So how many of these kind of like useless words are in there that really just chunk it up and make it harder to read. They, kind of bury the lead in the sentence and just make it, pad your word count for no real reason. So that is the sticky sentence report. It is one of my favorites. So we have just, again, a ton of different reports in here. I love all of our readability ones. We have the Diction Report, which I talked about as well. This is looking for kind of vague and abstract words. So some, these words that really don't like add or give enough specificity. And then diction, this one is a fiction example, so it won't catch as much jargon. But again, we talked about kind of like that jargon that's when you're using phrases that are just too long. So like in proximity to instead of just near, really just finding that, or any jargon that would be
industry specific or.
Yeah, exactly. Industry specific and that type of thing. So that's kind of a tour of what it looks like in the web editor. We also have a ton of integrations that let you edit where you write, which is one of the best things about ProWritingAid. We actually just released a new Word add-in, which is very amazing. I'm on a Mac, so I don't know if I'll be able to share just because I have to do a whole parallel desktop thing. But our Word add-in does all of this in Word, so you get all 20 reports in Word. We also have a desktop app, which I saw Bill in the chat said works with Scrivener, which is so true. You can basically upload your Scrivener or your final draft files if you're a screenwriter into our desktop app. It saves all of your structure and formatting, make all your changes in ProWritingAid, and then just drop it back into your software to use. Then we also have a Chrome extension and a Google Docs add-in, which again, just let you kind of edit very seamlessly wherever you are.
So one of the things that I always look at, with these tools that are coming out is how much text can it actually handle. Mm-hmm. A lot of times I find, the sweet spot for any of them is about 40 to 50,000 words. Anything above that, things start to crash and it's just a horrible nightmare. So I was just wondering if you're aware of kind of like where that sweet spot for ProWritingAid is as far as length.
That's a great question. We actually recently added a chapter feature so that you can check chapter by chapter, so that you don't have to run on an entire document. If you're working on something that's like, again, 50,000, 100,000 words, a really long novel, I would always just for your own sake, I would recommend that you don't try to edit 100,000 words in one sitting. So you can use our chapter feature, or you can just select specific like sets or parts of text. So if you just wanted to do one paragraph, you can highlight that, do that specifically. Our chapter feature lets you go chapter by chapter, and then break it down from there. But, I'd say some of that kind of depends on like how fast your computer is, how fast your internet connection is, all of that type of thing. So I'm always like, just avoid that and use the chapter feature so you're checking, 3 or 5 at a time rather than 50.
So I'm going to end up probably with like a 95,000 word book, about 50 chapters. So I could dump the whole file in there, but then just select a number of chapters to do at a time. So I don't have to like copy and paste in chunks. Yep. That is awesome. That is a time saver. Okay.
Yes.
Now, if I'm an author, I might be thinking, boy, I just want to get the story out and written. And that's somewhat true. But your book that you're writing, it's for the readers, right? It's not really for you. It's for them to have an enjoyable experience. So, Ellen, as an editor, why is it important? Why should we care about our sticky words, about having a lot of glue words, about the words that this program will bring up and suggest that we change? Why should we care? What's the impact on the reading experience? What do you think?
It just they clog up your text. I mean, and if you're writing a textbook and somebody has to have it, you can probably just do whatever you want. I'm sorry to anybody who ever worked in the textbook industry. I know that's not true. But yeah, you're trying to entertain your readers, not put them to sleep. Most of the time, I think is the goal. So don't bore them to death. Don't qualify what you're saying, what you're trying to say, because it just waters it down. I mean, do you want fresh coffee, or do you want coffee that has sat around and gotten cold and the cream is floating on the top, and because it makes your writing weak and you look like an idiot.
Okay, so I don't want to look like an idiot. I don't want weak writing. So I do want to address these things. All right, so say I've pulled up the sticky report and I've got all kinds of words highlighted. How do I start fixing these things?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it depends. So some of the reports will offer you suggestions. So let's see if we run a sticky sentences report. So first of all, I saw that James in the comments was saying that it flags slowly, but not very. I think that's just due to the report that I was running. The style report would flag very as an adverb. So depending on the report you're running, it will flag kind of different things. So sticky sentences, it will basically go in here. And this is kind of the sticky sentences report specifically is a great example of how editing technology works with a writer. So this is not, because you're working with a whole sentence, it's not going to suggest an entire sentence edit for you. But what it will do is identify the sentences that are above a specific percentage. We've found that in most of the published text, again, kind of to that algorithm that I was talking about that our NLP team works on, that most published text has a sticky sentence or a glue word percentage, of around 40% in the text. Does that mean that every single sentence is perfect at 40? No, some might be a little above, some might be a little below, but again, the average will be 40. That's what we're looking for. So this report will highlight the sentences that are above 40, and so that you can find it. So it'll say, okay, this one has 62% glue words in it. That means that this is a sentence that I need to figure out how I can rewrite to be a little bit more clear. So it's identifying that so you know where it is, and then you as the writer can come in and make the changes there.
All right, so it's just kind of showing me where the problem is, and then I'm putting on my thinking cap and coming up with something different.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And then in certain reports, like for passive voice or, those kind of grammar and style checks, it will tell you what the change is. But again, for these more substantial rewrites, which is like a sticky sentence where it's a whole sentence that's going to fit into something else, that's where you as the author have control.
Yeah, where it's a judgment call that
exactly.
Okay, I can scratch this, scratch that.
Yep.
Switch these. And is this a good place for me to tell you that fireball is a compound word?
Ellen is all about them compounds, man.
I'm all about everything. I'm sorry. Carry on.
So earlier you showed sentence structure and that the sentences ought to be varied. Could you pull that up? And then Ellen, why is sentence structure and varying up your sentence style important?
Well, you don't want to sound like you're reading poetry or a police report. If you have 5-word sentences, there's a rhythm, it gets monotonous, it becomes a drone. The voice that you're listening to in your head as you read is droning. These little short sentences or barking, whatever your voice does. And so you need to vary the length of your sentences to keep it interesting. You want it up and down like a roller coaster, unless you're deliberately like trying to introduce tension or something.
Yeah, I actually ran the wrong one. I'll talk about that one in a second. I'm looking at all of the wrong reports here. But so we have that roller coaster that Ellen was talking about, up and down, which is pretty good variation. We also actually have our structure check. So to that point about like, you don't want it to be monotonous, this is another instance of just giving you more information about your writing. It highlights how many of my sentences are starting with a subject, how many are starting with an adverb, how many are starting with this. So you can say, oh, maybe if every single one of my sentences starts with a subject, I'm, talking about my mom too much, whatever that subject is. Again, just more information, because I think as writers, sometimes we're so concerned about just getting the words on the page that we're not necessarily thinking about like how they're there until that editing process. And this just gives us more information so we can see, okay, what am I doing? What are my bad habits? Where are they showing up in my text? And, then I can think about fixing them.
So she has a sentence structure check up, and it's underlined all the sentences in the manuscript and given them different colors to kind of visually show off the different kinds of sentences she has there. Does it give you suggested changes?
Nope. So it's the same thing. This is, again, an example where it's going to be up to your judgment, but it does give you examples. So it says, okay, 70% of this starts with a subject compared to 61% in that published writing that we crawl. So that means you're probably above that. So we want to change that up. Nothing here is starting with a gerund or an infinitive. You might want to consider adding some, 0% here. So again, this is the judgment call. We're not going to tell you what makes the most sense in your context. But again, these are those reports that are information for you. So you can say, okay, what should I go back and change and work on?
And then Kayleen, if you've got a client who finds themselves writing the same kinds of sentences again and again and again, what kind of advice would you give them for how to go about, where to even start changing things up?
For that, the same kind of sentences, you need to start thinking about, are you talking about the scenery? Is it a spot where you can, reintroduce a little bit of the 5 senses? Can you put some sound in there? Can you get a little bit more into the character's head, or, maybe instead of all of this description, throw in some narrative where the characters are interacting with it, and then through the dialogue, by what they're saying, you're actually building that scenery through their dialogue. Characters walking through a room and it's, oh my God, can you close the blinds on your window? It's blinding me. Whatever it might be. Instead of, the light came through the window, blinding his eyes, it could make it that much more punchy, I guess you could say, carrying the reader through a little bit faster. So yeah, there's lots of different ways. What are each of your sentences really saying, and is it something that, does it need to be said? Like, have you said it before? That's one thing that I do see a lot is repetitive sentences, where either in the dialogue or the description, it's been described, it's been said, and it's like they're having this conversation again. what could be the next step, to pushing that either topic or scenery, to the next step. I don't know if that's a question, but
no, that does that to go back into the scene and to look at it from different perspectives, to especially to get into the character's head and see if there's another way of communicating that information, a different way than you already have, something to add interest and variation and color. I love that. And I like how you run a program like this, and the program can show you visually on the screen what's going on, if we're having the same kind of sentence, but then it might take a step back and a creative look at it to figure out how to fix it.
And that's where you can work with your editor too. You can be like, hey, I have this section. Hey, Kayleen, I have this section where ProWritingAid told me I'm using a subject at the first 100% of my sentences, but I'm not really sure how to fix it. That's where you can kind of bounce off and work with yourself or somebody else to make those changes.
Ellen, what would you say to an author who finds themselves using the same kinds of sentences? Because I see this come up a lot. So, I'm not very sympathetic, I guess. I say now that you've identified the problem, solve it. Practice if you have to. Practice on your own. I don't know. Read it aloud. See if you read it aloud and talk it through, maybe you'll find a better way to express it. And start by taking out everything that you don't need, like standing around and looking at things. I have a bug about that. Lose the action beats. Find something good.
He reached his hand.
And you're not writing Dick and Jane, or I assume you're not writing Dick and Jane. If you are writing Dick and Jane, I don't know why you would need me. But see spot run, run spot run is boring for everybody. It will be boring for you too if you read it aloud. Yeah, it's kind of crazy when you start cutting stuff out, how good what's left looks. Yeah. And then that might give you ideas for how to change the sentence structure too, especially at the start of sentences. Adding in dependent clauses can change the rhythm up a little bit. We have a question from the chat. Oops, I just lost the question. Bill asks, how often do those reports change with percentages? How different are they in the type of writing in fiction versus nonfiction, for example?
Yeah, great question. So we have, I pulled up here, we have a couple ways that you can customize. You can customize based on the type of English that you speak. So British, US, Australian, Canadian. We were actually chatting about this before we hopped on about how there's so many different spellings that you don't really realize until you're me and you're working with a British team and you're like, why do you spell license with 2 C's? That doesn't make any sense. So we have those changes. And then you can also change the writing style over here. And this does a couple things. For instance, we found that in our reporting that academic writing tends to have a little bit more instances of passive voice than, would make sense in a novel or in fiction work. So it won't penalize you for those as much. And then there's also some options here for like script writing where you're going to have potentially shorter sentences or, specific, you might not have any dialogue tags because there aren't any because of the way that the script is formatted and that type of thing. So we offer changes in here so that you can have that in. It also helps retain formatting. So if you're a screenwriter writing with Final Draft, doing the script formatting won't cause it to blow up and decide to put everything in giant paragraphs. You can maintain that space that you need for that as well. So these styles allow you to change up. And again, technical writing might be at a higher readability than we would recommend for something that is fiction or something that's more general. So there's kind of all of those changes built into those.
Yes, that's pretty cool. Definitely play around, people out there with those, because each one, it's going to show something a little bit different just because of the algorithms essentially that are built into each of them. General versus creative is probably going to, give you a much different picture. So definitely play with those for sure.
Well, some of our audience are UK authors and they want to write for an American market. But the spelling, as you mentioned, can be very different and even some of the punctuation too. So that will does it fix it for you or just give you suggestions and you kind of roll through the suggestions?
Yeah, so I mean, if it's a spelling error, it will find that. So it'll do it kind of just like a typical spelling and grammar check. It will find those suggestions and replace them for you. Again, you can always choose to replace them, but it'll make those changes for you. So all the licenses, all the favorites, colors, all that type of stuff, it'll find for you.
Okay. All right. What are some other cool features that ProWritingAid has?
Yeah, so I think, again, our videos are really great. We also, let me see if I can get into that. Let me see if I can find some passive voice. So I was kind of talking at the beginning. I think one of the biggest differentiators for me with ProWritingAid, first of all, why I wanted to work here. And then second of all, I think just as we continue to move forward is that we're trying to make this a really great tool for writers. So like I said before, we have these videos that are in here. We have a full article that you can come to. Actually, this is a bad example of one, but let me see if I can find a misspelled word. We're adding quizzes is what I'm getting at. But we're adding them. Have it. Let's see.
The articles that we've seen look pretty short and that they have examples. So they give an example of what's right and what's wrong. They explain the example and they also keep it short so your time is valuable. They get to the point and you can move on.
Yes, and then you can always in the tool itself, it's a quick sample, and then when you come in here, there's more examples. And then again, we're adding quizzes for these so that you're able to come in and say like, oh man, I always confuse worse and worst, or than and then, or my twos, or all of that type of stuff. You can drop them in here and just, check it out and see how you're working. So that is one of my just favorite things. Again, I come from a teaching background, so being able to just help people learn is really important for me. This is like a little bit of a sneak preview. So hold on, let me go back to a new from guides. So we're adding guides as well. So we are adding, again, this is not up yet, but we're adding guides, especially that can be helpful for people who are doing business writing, people who aren't necessarily writers. So they're not like us. They're not spending hours working on their novel. They aren't into the craft of writing. So we're creating these guides and summaries for them so that they're able to build that themselves and really have a starting place. That is not live yet. It's a little bit of a sneak preview. That is very exciting for me personally. And then again, our upcoming writing training. So we have the write-ins, the ways that we kind of connect. We also have a Facebook group where we do prompts, we do beta reader exchanges. So you can find a beta reader, be one for someone else. We have, troubleshooting in there, all of that type of stuff. So really just kind of this holistic community that we've created is very exciting for me.
So what's the name of the Facebook group? Is it just...
it's the ProWritingAid Facebook group. Let me grab a link for you guys. ProWritingAid community. I will drop it in the private.
Beta readers are worth their weight in gold.
Yes. Good beta readers are worth their weight in gold.
Yeah. No quality guarantees there, but you can connect.
And then, so write-ins, what time are those? Once a week, twice a week?
So the write-ins are right now about every other week or so, but we do have a bunch of different trainings every week. So not always a write-in, but we have something that you can learn on. So today we were speaking with a book doctor. So she is somebody who kind of comes in and helps diagnose problems with books. And then we also had a tour of the software. We do those monthly. So if you're a new user, you can come in and learn from our founder, Chris Banks. I think it's the first Tuesday of every month, but don't quote me on that. And then we have, again, trainings with a bunch of different people. So we have a number on editing next week. We have one on writing a cover letter the week after that. And then we have our write-ins. So we just a lot of ways to connect happening.
Interesting. All right. Any other cool features that are?
I feel like we've done a lot of them so far. This is the house report, which I was talking about. We don't have any text in here, but that's where you're able to to create your own rules and that type of thing. We also have a plagiarism check. So if you're, interested in that for yourself, or if you're working with students, or just, in some instance where you want to check for plagiarism, we have that availability as well.
As an editor, I've checked for it. Does it instruct you on how to properly quote? Like if you've accidentally plagiarized and you want to be able to use that information in your book, but you're not sure the proper way of doing it? Is that information here, or is that something I need to Google or ask a professional?
Yeah, great question. So it doesn't tell you how, but it's very similarly, it identifies the unoriginal text, so you can find it and then be able to make changes from there.
Okay. And then acronym, how do you use that? We have a number of military science fiction authors who use a lot of acronyms in their.
Let's see. Well, I don't know if we'll have any if we'll be able to pull up any with a sample, because there aren't a ton of acronyms always in samples. Let's see. Hold on. Let me see if I can grab something for it. Let's go here.
Yeah, there are definitely so many different tools just in this one little thing.
Yeah.
For any of you who have it, are thinking about getting it, you could spend forever just kind of tinkering around and finding really what works for you. You certainly don't have to use every single report. Once you figure out, hey, I'm good on this zone with whatever it is. You don't have to focus on all of them, so that's pretty cool. It kind of
set it to run the reports that you want.
Yeah,
exactly. And it always does that.
Yep. So the acronym check just makes a list of all the acronyms that you have, so that you can find kind of misspelled or inconsistent ones. So if you're, saying ASPCA, ASCPA, and you can see oh, I've said this 5 different times throughout here. So you're able to just find that consistency. So if you're doing, military fiction or something like that, you can make sure that you've, been consistent about how you're using it and referring to it throughout your text.
And that's really all you need.
Yeah.
Keep straight to be consistent.
Yep.
I saw you also have cliches.
Yes, we do. We have cliches. Where were those? Let's see. This is I can send you guys this link, but this goes through all of our reports. So cliches and redundancies, as it says here, they're a crutch. So, no frozen ice, no hollow tubes, basically just, where are you being redundant? And also what are kind of cliche ways to describe things. So these reports will help identify both of those.
And homonyms. I didn't know your programs would be that good at pulling out homonyms. They'll go by a spell check, and the spell check thinks it's fine because it is spelled right, but it's not the right way.
Yeah, and that's where we have a lot of those quizzes. So if you're, again, struggling with your theirs, if you're struggling with your twos, any of those homonyms, we have the quizzes built in so that you can really practice with them.
Very cool.
I'm just kind of blown away. I've tinkered around with it a little bit. But like I said, there's just so much. I need to just set down a day and just go through all the different things, because there's just so much, man. And there's even more than I even realized to begin with.
Yeah. And for me, I use it every day, and I'm constantly oh, here's I need to use this one. Why have I been ignoring my sentence structure check? I do the same sentence every time, so it's just, I think it really does make you a stronger writer, because it tells you just so much information about your writing that, an editor might just fix, or it gives you that education so you can see why it's wrong, so you can just make those changes moving forward. And I think just, again, those educational tools are really helpful for making sure the mistake sticks or the fix for the mistake sticks with you.
And the thing is, for $120 and a little bit of your time, you're going to get thousands of dollars of value out of your edits now that you weren't getting before, because your editor was fixing stupid things like homonyms.
Definitely the cleaner manuscript that you send an editor, the more you're going to get out of their edits. You know, if they don't have to spend, you know, an hour fixing there, and there, you know, they don't have to spend hours on punctuation type things. I mean, that can like really eat up so much time. You have no idea. Yeah, you're definitely gonna get better money for better money. Oh my god, I'm sorry, it's been a crazy day. You're gonna get better quality for your money. There you go.
And just really quickly, I saw Bill in the comments said like you have to put it down sometimes. I highly support that as well. This is a program that's always going to find something. You know what I mean? Like that's the point of this program, is to always find something, to always give you more information, even when it's great. So, you know, there can be a point where you're like, okay, I've, you know, what reports have I run through? Have I fixed all of these main errors? Now it's time to go to my human editor and work on that, because you'll never get like a perfect score on everything, because there will be stylistic choices you make where, you know, you might want to use passive voice, or a character is speaking in a particular way that, you know, uses more intensifiers or something like that. So it'll never be 100% perfect. But again, it's that information so that you can make the right choices for your text.
So we're on a journey to learn more and to become better writers. And this is just one more hint, well, a whole slew of hints actually, on how we can become better writers. And, you know, we put in the time, we can get there.
And my last question is, a lot of us are working on multiple computers. So I have my main desktop and I also have my laptop in case I need to travel with it. When you get your subscription, are you tied to just like one computer, or can you have that on multiple, and sort of like that scope of versatility?
Yeah, you can have it on multiple, and it'll pull up the documents that you have. So you're not having to like re-upload anything. It'll pull them up, you know, whatever browser you're accessing from.
Nice. Very good.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so we are right at the very tippy edge of the hour. I feel like I just got like garden hose or fire hose with like all the potential, and I've clearly not been using it well enough, even myself, just because, I mean, there are so many things you could spend a lifetime just digging through on a single document. So you've mentioned the Facebook group for the ProWritingAid community. People can find you there. Definitely all that information on the ProWritingAid.com site. Is there anywhere else people can either connect, contact, tweet, send, I don't know, all those things?
Yeah, well, we're on Twitter at ProWriting. Actually, if you guys want to, so we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on all those things. If you want to do us a favor, we're very close to 10,000 followers on our Instagram. So like search for that swipe up. So if you want to follow us on Instagram, it's ProWritingAid as well. We do, you know, fun quotes. We do our blog articles, all of that type of stuff. I actually haven't plugged the blog, which is a little crazy because I am the blog editor. But we also have a ton of information on our blog. In addition to those grammar articles that you saw, we have just articles about everything. We have, we've, for instance, had people writing about how to use technology to teach during COVID-19, how to run, you know, a fiction class online. How we have tons of articles on world building, on character development, on business writing, on how to write great copy for your sales page, like tons of stuff in our blog. Reading lists. So if you need new quarantine reads and you want to look at the best fantasy books of all time, all of that type of stuff, there's tons of information on our blog, tons of great articles. So check it out.
Well, thank you for doing that, for putting all that information out for authors. And it's just helping every author to see what the next step is, and to, you know, figure out what their story is that they want to tell, and to make it come alive. And there are hundreds and thousands of people out there who could use this information, and you've made it available. So thank you, Hayley, for doing that. And thanks for coming on the show and sharing this and showing us how to use this program, which, you know, I've got, but I have only been using, you know, the slightest little bit of it, and now I can use so much more. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.
And real quick before I close this out, Mare had an unrelated question. Currently, right now, we do not actually have anywhere where we have listed what our future topics and shows are going to be. That is something that I'm sure we all want to do. But, you know, sometimes, yeah, I don't have a good answer. There isn't one. Maybe we'll be able to make one.
Jump on our Facebook page, and that's where, if there is new information about upcoming shows, that's where you'll find it.
And feel free to suggest topics.
Yes.
Yeah. Come join Keystroke Medium on Facebook. You just type in Keystroke Medium. They were the only ones out there. That the group is definitely the #1 place to get all of that kind of info, because, you know, we're all of us in the Keystroke company. We're always there hanging out, doing all the things. All right. So thank you so much, Hayley. Thank you so much, Ellen, for coming on, joining me and Lauren, and, you know, talking all the fun nitty-gritty that just doesn't get to be talked about enough. To all of our viewers, all of our listeners, please hit the subscribe button. Please ding the little bell. Let us know in the comments. Let us know on Keystroke Medium Facebook group, you know, who you want to see on, what topics you want us to talk about. We want to talk about what you want to hear. And, you know, we're here for you. We do this for you. So help us help you. All right. Until next week, we're going to talk about more reading, writing, and everything in between right here on Keystroke Medium's The Writer's Journey. Good night, guys.